The explosion came without warning. 1 second, the battlefield was alive with shouting, engines, and gunfire. The next, it was swallowed by smoke, fire, and screaming metal. Medics ran through the chaos, stepping over bodies already beyond saving. Among them lay a young Soviet soldier, motionless, his face covered in ash and blood. They checked for a pulse. Nothing. His chest did not rise. His eyes did not move. In war, hesitation costs lives, and so the verdict was immediate: dead. His name was written down, his identity noted, and his body was dragged toward a growing pile of corpses waiting to be buried under snow and dirt. For the army, this was routine. Thousands died this way every week on the Eastern Front. But this battlefield was about to produce something history had never seen before. As night fell and the temperature dropped below freezing, the dead were left alone. No prayers, no final words, just silence. Yet beneath that silence, something impossible was happening. Somewhere under the weight of frozen bodies, a man who had been officially declared dead was slowly beginning to breathe again. And when his eyes finally opened in the darkness, surrounded by corpses, the real story of this war was only just beginning. What kind of man wakes up among the dead and chooses to keep fighting? Pain arrived before awareness. A crushing, suffocating weight pressed against his chest. The air was thin, icy, and filled with the smell of blood and burned flesh. When he tried to move, his body screamed in protest. Bones were broken. His skull throbbed violently. One eye saw nothing but darkness. Slowly, terrifying clarity returned. He was not in a hospital. He was not behind friendly lines. He was trapped beneath the bodies of fallen soldiers, men who would never wake again. Panic surged, but instinct took over. Inch by inch, he forced his arms free, pushing against stiff limbs frozen by death. It took hours to crawl out from beneath the pile, leaving behind skin, blood, and pieces of uniform. The snow burned his lungs as he dragged himself forward, unsure if the enemy was nearby or if another shell would finish the job. Every movement felt like betrayal by his own body. Eventually, he collapsed again, this time alone, exposed to the open sky. Somehow, against all logic, he survived the night. When he was finally found by friendly troops, even the hardened veterans stared in disbelief. A man pulled from a corpse pile was not a miracle. It was a warning. Death had missed him once, and it would not be so easy the second time. But survival came with a price, one that should have ended his military career forever. Doctors were blunt. His injuries were catastrophic. Shrapnel had torn through his skull. One eye was permanently damaged. His lungs were scarred. Even standing upright was a challenge. The official recommendation was immediate discharge. No frontline duty. No combat role. In any other army, the discussion would have ended there. But Ivan Drachenko was not ready to accept survival as his final achievement. While lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by amputees and men whispering about home, Ivan made a decision that shocked everyone who heard it. He demanded to return to service. Not to a desk. Not to logistics. He wanted combat. Officers laughed. Some were angry. Others thought he was insane. A partially blind man had no place in modern warfare, especially not in aviation. But Ivan refused to back down. He trained harder than anyone else, forcing his damaged body to adapt. Pain became routine. Failure became fuel. When he finally stood before the flight commission, the answer should have been no. Instead, against expectations and regulations, he was cleared on one condition. If he failed even once, he would be grounded permanently. Ivan accepted without hesitation. He was about to enter the most dangerous arena of the war, carrying injuries that should have killed him twice already. What happens when a man who escaped death takes to the skies, half-blind and fearless? Flying demanded perfection, split-second decisions, flawless depth perception. Ivan lacked what every pilot needed most: full vision. Yet in the air, something changed. He compensated with instinct, spatial memory, and sheer willpower. Fellow pilots quickly noticed his silence. He spoke little, focused intensely, and never wasted motion. On his first combat mission, enemy fighters appeared suddenly through cloud cover. Panic spread across the formation, but Ivan reacted faster than anyone. He positioned his aircraft perfectly, predicting enemy movement rather than seeing it clearly. One burst of fire, then another. An enemy plane spiraled downward in flames. Radio chatter exploded. The disabled pilot had scored a confirmed kill. Mission after mission, Ivan proved impossible to ignore. He flew bombing runs through anti-aircraft fire, escorted damaged planes home, and never abandoned a wingman. His injuries no longer defined him. They sharpened him. But with every victory, risk grew. Enemies adapted. The skies became deadlier. And fate, which had already spared him twice, was preparing another test, one that would push him beyond endurance. The sky had spared him so far, but the ground was waiting. During a low-altitude mission, disaster struck. Anti-aircraft fire ripped through Ivan's aircraft, forcing him to crash land behind enemy lines. Wounded and disoriented, he was captured by German forces. For most pilots, capture meant survival until exchange. For Ivan, it meant something worse. Interrogation, isolation, brutality. The enemy knew his value. A pilot who survived impossible odds was a symbol, and symbols had to be broken. Days turned into weeks. Escape attempts were punished severely. Yet Ivan studied everything: guard patterns, weaknesses, terrain. One stormy night, amid chaos and confusion, he made his move. Injured, half-starved, and hunted, he fled into enemy territory with nothing but determination. What followed was not an escape. It was a journey through hell. Ivan moved only at night. He drank from streams, ate whatever he could find, and avoided roads at all costs. Every sound could mean capture or death. His wounds reopened. Infection set in. Several times he collapsed, convinced this was the end. But each time he forced himself up again. Farmers hit him. Strangers risked execution to help him. After weeks of movement, crawling and near misses, he crossed back into Soviet-controlled territory. Instead of punishment or suspicion, he was welcomed as something rare. A man who refused to disappear. Recovery took months. Yet once again, Ivan asked for only one thing: to return to combat. After everything he endured, would the war finally let him rest, alone, wounded, and hunted? Could he outrun an entire army? Against reason, Ivan returned to flight duty. He led missions now, guiding younger pilots who had never seen combat. His presence changed them. Fear lessened. Discipline sharpened. When Ivan flew, losses dropped. Enemy resistance increased, targeting him specifically. He became both weapon and target. Each mission felt like borrowed time, and still he pushed forward. But history had one final judgment waiting for him. By the war's end, Ivan Dranchenko had achieved something almost unheard of. He was awarded Hero of the Soviet Union and all 3 classes of the Order of Glory, a combination so rare it placed him among legends. The man declared dead on a battlefield was now immortalized in records. But medals could not erase memories. Victory had come, but at a cost that never fades. Peace did not bring silence. The war stayed with him. Nightmares, pain, loss. Yet Ivan lived quietly, never boasting, never seeking fame. He knew how close the world came to forgetting him entirely. History remembers winners, but it nearly erased this survivor. And for decades, his story remained almost unknown. Ivan Dranchenko's story is not about victory. It is about refusal. Refusal to die. Refusal to surrender. Refusal to be erased. In a war built on destruction, he became proof that survival itself could be an act of defiance. Declared dead, buried among corpses, half-blind, captured, escaped, returned, remembered, not because he was lucky, but because he refused to stop.